Good afternoon, salam alaikum, bonjour. The elephant, the cops, law enforcement. There is a need everywhere in each nation to fill a gap, which if it gets unfilled, will be filled by organized crime. Security gap or policing gap. TOC is the acronym from Transnational Organized Crime. It's transnational by nature, by definition. However, its effects are felt locally. On the other way around, we should address TOC locally at the root causes, to find the root causes, to disrupt globally organized crime. So today, being the cop, the elephant in the room, I would like to bring the military in the police dimension. Usually in the NATO environment, I have a background in NATO. I was used to say, we bring the police dimension into the military environment. Today is the other way around. It will be crucial to understand together what we can do together. Interagency, interstate cooperation. If crime cross borders, so must law enforcement. Fighting against transnational organized crime is a struggle that knows no border. My stopwatch didn't start. My apologies. So to stick to the timetable. So let me set the scene 1 second. I will take you somewhere else from Africa. Do you know this bloke? I trust my colleague Justin from the UK knows him. This is Mr. Sir Pedi Asdown, former special envoy of the United Nations in Bosnia and Herzegovina. So we are talking about 1995. I was just 25 at that time. But it says something which was crucial. In Bosnia and Herzegovina, criminals pose the greatest, the most serious threat to stability. Instead of early election, we should have posed the focus on the rule of law. This should have been the international priority. But let's go further east, Afghanistan. The international community praised the great success of the elections. Oh, no bombs blew off at the polls. Great success. Without mentioning that the poor Afghan people who went to the polls got stopped 200 meters from the polls by the Taliban. They checked the hands because unfortunately they couldn't write, so they were illiterate. They checked the thumbs with the ink because they expressed their vote with the ink, and they had their hands chopped by the Taliban. Was it an exercise of democracy? I think no. And what about the rule of law then? Sir Mike Jackson, the first commanding general in Kosovo, so we go back west. 1999, confrontation with the Russians, some issues, but there was still a big issue. After Timor-Leste, Kosovo was a mission with an executive mandate, so the rule of law was to be implemented. He was speaking about the Carabinieri, my force, a police force with military status, an organization expressing civil law enforcement capability, as the gendarmerie. Cela mentions. Anyway, he said that we are talking about just soldiers with the mindset of cops. Simple like that. They are fully interoperable. Daisy spoke about interoperability with the military. We have the same TTPs, tactics, techniques, and procedures, and we use the same weaponry. So we can work together, hands in hands. Something else, going back to Afghanistan. Hosna Jalil, she was the first female in the government, in the Afghan government. She was 29 when she was nominated Deputy Minister for Interior. I had the opportunity to work with her, and she focused on the crime-related death toll in Afghanistan. It was 150/200% higher than the terrorist-related death. But the international community and the Afghan government focused on the so-called counterinsurgency or terrorism operations with a light footprint approach on law enforcement. And we ended up with the police supporting the military in counterinsurgency operations and dedicating just the 15% of their forces in community-oriented policing. CIGAR, you don't smoke the cigar, is the Special Inspector General for Afghanistan Reconstruction, a United States auditing body of the Congress. I happen to cooperate with them on a report, Policing in Conflict, and the findings are a little bit scary. So, critical golden hour when you deploy your troops, 6 to 12 months after a ceasefire or a peace agreement. I know we are talking about peacekeeping here, but wait a moment. The United Nations estimates that to deploy a mission, a police assistance mission, it takes 9 to 12 months. We have been busy with Haiti. You heard about it. The Security Council resolution dates the 2nd of October 2023, first 4 minutes when pass it by. And we do not have the draft of the CONOPS yet. RAND Corporation, this is more scary. After the Second World War, societies recovering from war relapsed into war, most of them. Half of them, 50% of them, within 5 years. 1/5 within 1 year. Afghanistan, 9 days. Why? Lots of people wrote about it, but what about the rule of law? Cops, courts, and correction. The only definition about this gap, the policing gap, is in NATO. So I'm not bragging about NATO, I'm just saying that NATO understood the importance of policing in destabilized environments, so not only peacekeeping operations, destabilized environment. It's a gap that you can see from 2 different perspectives, capacity and capabilities, lack of capacity and capability, that line, and the real needs of the local population, which we do not manage to fulfill. If we do not fulfill these needs, as the professor, Brigadier General Russell Howard, said, somebody else will do it. The terrorists of organized crime. It happens everywhere, also in Fortress Europe, as somebody mentioned, and in my own country. I can give you plenty of examples. How the United Nations and the international community try to approach the phenomenon of transnational organized crime through the Palermo Convention, 15 November 2000, the United Nations Transnational Organized Crime Convention. However, we don't have a definition of transnational organized crime. We know that a serious crime, however, is a crime which can be punished with a penalty of at least 4 years imprisonment. And then, as you see, there are criteria to establish what is an organized criminal group. So, at least 3 persons, they have to be permanent together, they want to do at least 1 serious crime, apart from petty crimes maybe, but usually they are very serious, heinous crime, I would say, and then they want a profit, material or financial. So we don't have a definition, but look at it. How many possible understanding of TOC? TOC exploits porous borders. Everywhere there is a seam, they will sneak in. Terrorism as well. They exploit also regulatory gaps between countries, so neighboring countries must cooperate. Otherwise, they will be, the criminals will be in a safe haven. This fosters impunity, but this jeopardizes, undermines the legitimacy of your institutions. So can we afford that human rights are infringed every now and then? Can we afford that human security is underestimated by our institution? Can we afford to fail in bringing about long-term peace developing our countries? Can we afford to leave these people committing any kind of violence and fuel corruption? Yesterday, I heard an awful lot of colleagues talking about corruption. But what can we do to better our countries? When I wake up, JFK will say, well, think about what you can do for your country, not about what your country can do for you. So, TOC is multifaceted, is global, is an enduring challenge. But to counter TOC, we must have a multifaceted approach and enduring legal weapons. Legal weapons means last 4 minutes and it's gone. So, triathlon helps. And then What about scarcity of police on the borders? Yesterday I heard a colleague talking about scarcity of police on the borders. And when you do not have enough police, you need to support them in controlling the borders. And your borders are far different from mine. I have sea and mountains in Italy. You have sometimes plain. That's it. It's far more difficult. You need drones, you need any kind of equipment to control, but also patrol. We cannot afford to leave any safe haven. We must not leave any quarters to the criminals. This is the approach. It's very aggressive. So let's see what is the perspective of the United Nations on transnational organized crime. It's a peace spoiler. It's a given. We know. Because they fuel corruption. They are good also at exploiting an overlap between war and crime. Sometimes it's very difficult to understand it. Is it a criminal act or is it an act of war? Does it fall within the Geneva Convention or not? Or can we take these people before the prosecution? Do I have the legal framework to do it? And then every time there is a void, we spoke about a void, a gap. Every time somebody will exploit it. Think about also natural resources. Daisy, you spoke about it. Logging, poaching, illicit mining. And what about trafficking in waste? Pollution. Yesterday we spoke about environmental protection. So the United Nations is taking a keen eye on this, and for years has been working on developing the capacities of the recipients of the country through several projects. The Transnational Threat Project, you can see in the slide, the West Coast Africa Initiative, they are working on intelligence, on also building the capacity to fight violent extremism, organized crime, talk, I will say, and corruption. We must build the integrity of our institution. And then the cooperation with the United Nations Office of Drug and Crime and Interpol, which are the most important police international organizations that deal with the subject matter. So we cannot ignore talk. Where is the problem? The United Nations systems understand the importance of talk. What about member states? Do they turn a blind eye as it happened in Afghanistan, where the international community didn't give a strong mandate, the light footprint approach to the international community? There are 3 countries, only 3 missions mandate which speak about organized crime talk in ONU, within the United Nations. Mali, Central Africa, and Congo. But they just touch upon the issue. Can we afford it, or do we have to ask our politicians to be a little bit more courageous to provide the United Nations with this more robust mandate? So, which are the key strategies to fight talk? This comes from my experience. I've been in the law enforcement industry since ever. So, there's no enemy. Who is the enemy? Let's exploit also undercover operation. It's difficult to infiltrate terrorism, but you can still use an awful lot of devices to listen what they do. For sure, it's far easier to infiltrate organized crime, because you do not have to convert possibly on an orthodox, on extremist vision of your religion. But crucial is community-oriented policing. The cop on the beat. We must talk to the population. Take out the sunglasses and talking to people, to the kids in the villages, to the elders. We must establish a contact with them, win hearts and mind. It's over. So it's both domestically and internationally. We have to carry out intelligence-led policing operation, joint operation with the other countries, with the other police forces. We do need a legal framework, but we do need also to be very aggressive with the money. We must be proactive. We must hit the financial heart of the organized crime criminal organization. If we fail to do so, they will flourish. If we cut the ties with money, they will do nothing. This comes from our experience, from my experience in Italy. The 2 phases that they are coming out are the phases of 2 prosecutors killed by mafia with roadside bombs. Follow the money, and you will disrupt organized crime. Technology, let's have the hedge, and we'll win also on this battlefield. And lastly, interagency cooperation. Judge Falcone Borsellino. I move to tears every time I see them. I was a lieutenant when they died. We are closing to an end. Interagency cooperation is crucial. It fosters info sharing, but also allows law enforcement to get more power. Think about the custody chain when we retrieve important pieces of evidence. Or think also about law enforcement intelligence. So don't think only about the green intelligence, but there is also a blue approach on the facts. And the commander on the ground needs both flow of information, because the police carry out investigation, but gathers also information and develop intelligence. Lastly, this improves cooperation and complementarity. Last slide. We need a paradigm shift. We cannot kill at will. One must not only neutralize our opponents, adversaries, non-enemies, because we must support the rule of law, cops, courts, and correction, because the strategic communication is to be improved, because we need long-term effect through minimum use of force to minimize collateral damage. We must arrest people rather than killing them on the spot or capturing them, because we need to bring them before justice. And we must consolidate our battlefield gains. Also, the military support some very heavy organized crime operations. So we must not just win the battle and then retrieve. We must consolidate these gains. If we prosecute criminals rather than neutralizing them, we will for sure win the battle of narratives. We must, in this way, foster legitimacy of the institutions and resilience of the society. In this way, we protect state vulnerabilities below the threshold of war. There is the last picture for you, gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, my apologies. Do you know the Muppet in the center? It's Pinocchio. Everybody knows Pinocchio, the Muppet, the wooden Muppet. Arrested by 2 carabinieri. Why the writer Collodi has chosen the carabinieri to arrest Pinocchio? In a very large island in Italy, Sardinia, beautiful but very wild, talking about not organized crime, but criminality, the carabinieri are called the justice, the epitome of justice. But we are cops, we are not the courts. So, this is the aim of any kind of police force, to be acknowledged as an institution which delivers justice. We cannot be hated, as Professor Howard said. The most hated institution in Afghanistan, this is the Sigal report, was police, not the Taliban. I do thank you for your attention, pending your questions. I didn't speak about my center.